Steam, the digital Wild West where anything can happen and usually does. Especially when it involves shameless ripoffs. For every indie award-winning gem, there's some monstrosity that looked like it was assembled by a raccoon. Or 100 of them, actually, at least. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 of the most bizarre clone games on Steam. Starting off today at number 10, it's Ebola Village. This is certainly a thing. Ebola Village isn't just a blatant Resident Evil knockoff, it's also utterly bizarre, and I'm not just talking about the name. I mean, the name is insane, don't get me wrong. I mean, seriously, Ebola Village, like the Ebola virus, where the last major outbreaks were back in the early 2000s, might as well call it like Murder Hornet Village. The actual content of the game is mad enough. It starts off with an opening right out of Resident Evil 3's remake, only instead of quickly transitioning into an exciting escape sequence, you spend the first 15 minutes of Ebola Village wandering around your apartment doing mundane activities like looking for a phone book so you can call your mom.
Алло. Алло. Блин, мама, бери же трубку. Придется самой ехать в село Поповка.
Very interesting, right? Well, wait until you have to get dressed and find your keys. Then you leave your apartment and you remember you need your driver's license. Otherwise you can't drive, right? Thrill a minute, guys. Thrill a freaking minute. Ignoring the fact that you have to search other apartments to get a fuse to fix the light in your bathroom, which you refuse to go to unless it's lit up. Yep, that's real. What I'm saying is a real thing in the game. But the actual game finally starts after you get into the car and you drive to the village. Which, by the way, with how mundane the game is, it's shocking that there isn't like a sign that says, "You are now entering the Ebola Village city limits." Obviously, the translation for this thing is just absolutely horrific, and the controls are bizarre. For some reason, you shoot by pressing R1, but almost everything about this game is pulled directly from Resident Evil. Besides that, like from the way you open doors, to the inventory system, to the green and red healing herbs, the game is not hiding the influence. If you click on the movie option on the main menu, you go to a YouTube channel called Residents of Evil, and that plays an Ebola Village movie that they made for the game. And I say this very loosely, which it's a loose enough statement as it is, but just figured it's good to say, or something. Like, it's so mind-bogglingly something that I have to say that. I'm pretty sure this one's actually a labor of love rather than a quick cash grab. And you got a completely out of nowhere Alone in the Dark reference with a bullfrog eating a fly, just like the opening of that game. I'm only scratching the surface of the insanity here. I could talk about how this game is just like, oh my god, I don't even know how to say it. That's why I'm gonna stop and move on to another game.
Что за пиздец? Сегодня вроде не 1 апреля. Последние 3 года творится полное дерьмо. Иногда мне кажется, что я сплю.
At number 9 is Revelations 2012. It's Left 4 Dead, but instead of zombies, it's evil possessed Mesoamerican warriors that you gun down by the hundreds. As 4 time-traveling heroes, it's your mission to stop an evil god or something by exploring temples, solving basic puzzles, and shooting a lot of people. Like a lot of people. People who are not like zombies. They are functionally zombies, but they are just Mesoamerican people. The premise alone is just weird as hell, but what makes Revelations 2012 notable is not just that it's a blatant clone of Left 4 Dead, it actually uses the Left 4 Dead engine. The developers of this game actually managed to secure the source engine from Valve to make a game that doesn't just look like a Left 4 Dead clone, it plays the same too, with a lot of UI elements that are essentially identical. It's more than a copy, it is a full-blown fan mod that was at one point sold on Steam for actual money. The current version of the game is free to play, And I know this is hard to believe from looking at it because, I mean, look at it, but this is the enhanced version of Revelations 2012. It used to be worse. This game being on the Source engine actually makes it feel better to play than a lot of other Left 4 Dead clones, but that doesn't make it good. It is full of bizarre choices that have massive text dumps, and it's just in the middle of a mission.
These crystal skulls can be used to communicate to their god from their highest priests. When all of the skulls are brought together, they have the power to summon the god into physical form.
Look at it's in, I don't know. The environments are often confusing, and all of you goofy futuristic weapons are not very satisfying to use. The game is also lacking the interesting infected variants that make this game's inspiration so interesting. There's no hunter type enemies that punish players for going in alone. It's possible to just rush forward by yourself and do fine. Teamwork doesn't really matter in the game, and that was a large part of why Left 4 Dead is good. Just not a very good game, but what makes it so bizarre is a crazy premise that they clearly put a lot of work into fleshing out. There's even a whole lore section on the main menu, and the fact this is an official product that was made with Valve's blessing. At number 8 is This Sect Accepts Female Disciples Only. We're getting pretty deep in the weeds here with a cultivation type game that takes this already extremely bizarre subgenre and goes completely up the deep end with one of the most insane titles I've ever heard. What the game is actually called, I'm not completely sure, honestly. The Steam page calls it by one name, the purchase button calls it Fairy Women's Cultivation Sect, which is also crazy, but not quite as in-your-face weird as the other title. AI art and the cover image, crazy title, none of it can prepare you for what the game actually looks like. If you're unaware what a cultivation game even is, it all started with the amazing Cultivation Simulator, a smash hit game in China that combines elements of RimWorld with Chinese culture to make something that's entirely unique, deeply esoteric, and I mean there is a feng shui system built into this game. But it's also kind of fascinating, honestly. The game is extremely deep and almost impenetrably complex, but that's kind of why it is interesting. The art's simplistic and extremely abstract, but at least you can kind of tell what's going on. But now we're getting into This Sect Accepts Female Disciples Only, where it's not that it's... What am I even looking at here? This is just a cacophony of nonsense. Not exactly the sort of thing you'd expect from that name, right? I mean, it sounds like a porn game, but I think Dwarf Fortress is probably more risque than this. It's also easier to tell what the hell you're looking at, which is not a compliment. Dwarf Fortress it should not be something you can go, oh, that's a lot less confusing than the thing I'm looking at. At number 7 is Murder Miners. From the name and the blocky graphics, I wouldn't blame anyone for assuming it's another Minecraft ripoff because, I mean, the Minecraft influence can't be ignored. The blocky environmental graphics, the focus on creative elements, the Minecraft ripoff aspect of the game, it is obvious. But what might not be so recognizable at first glance is that it's not just a Minecraft clone, it is also a Halo clone. Yup, it's got the 2-weapon limit, it's got the vast majority of the Halo weapon loadout, including an energy sword and a battle rifle with all the function of their Halo equivalents. It's got regenerating shields and a circular radar. It's Halo. Specifically, it's Halo multiplayer with Forge mode built in. This game lets people make their own maps and has a ton of game modes ranging from Halo classics to more Minecraft-oriented stuff like parkour, but what's really surprising about Murder Miners is it's actually not bad. Yeah, the shooting's a little basic and a little stiff. It's not the most impressive game ever, but it's got a ton of game modes and a small but dedicated community who are still playing it. For just a few bucks, it's actually a pretty decent game, but it is a weird little clone game that combines elements from two of Microsoft's biggest franchise. It's derivative and it knows it, but for having elements of both Halo and Minecraft here, it actually makes Murder Miners feel kind of unique despite the many ways it's cribbing from both series. At number 6 is Rubber Horse Rampage. There's been a few attempts to make a Cuphead clone that have failed for obvious reasons. If you're planning to make a quick buck, trying to copy a game with famously lush animation and highly polished gameplay probably isn't the best play. That didn't stop games like Enchanted Portals from trying, but while that game was super weak, Rubber Hose Rampage is just pathetic. The audacity of this thing is the most noteworthy thing about it. It's full of blatantly copy-pasted artwork that it's only able to skirt because it's public domain, which makes it fine on a moral level, but it doesn't make it high effort, let's say. Seriously, the main character is just Mickey Mouse, there's Popeye, Winnie the Pooh. Kind of shocking that this is somehow being sold for money. And more than that, it's still getting updates. Like, they just put out an update June 1st, 2025, adding Tintin to the game and yet another wowie. Obviously, it's stuff before 1930. Obviously. The actual game, though, god-awful. Barely functioning mess. Doesn't even try to be engaging or fun. Most of the boss fights just sit there and do practically nothing. It's a game that absolutely stinks, but as a bizarre curiosity, it is worth a mention. At number 5 is Time Survivors. There's a metric ton of almost identical Vampire Survivor likes on Steam. These games are relatively easy to make, but few manage to be as fun and addictive as the original. Time Survivors is yet another one of these games with a menu that looks pretty much the same. The in-game stuff looks pretty identical, other than the goofy 3D rendered enemies. Unlocks work the same way. It's practically one-to-one Vampire Survivors, but it's still missing the special sauce that makes the original special. The thing that makes Time Survivors unique is the premise. Instead of just borrowing liberally from Castlevania like its inspiration, the game does the same thing for historical figures. So instead of playing as generic vampire hunters, you play as like Abe Lincoln or Napoleon or Nero for some reason, doing your Vampire Survivor thing in some randomly selected historical location like the Dark Ages or Egypt. Some of these character choices are bizarre. I mean, Evita, I'm not sure who this is even supposed to be. Is it Evita, like Eva Peron from the musical? You can play as Vincent van Gogh or Mulan, who I'm pretty sure isn't entirely a historical figure. But you can also play as Mulan's father, which, alright. Playing Vampire Survivors with President Abraham Lincoln is weird enough, with their choice to give him flails and a power where he makes a bunch of cherry trees appear. But I mean, wasn't it Washington that chopped down the cherry? You know what? Never mind. I'm thinking too much about it. Maybe the weirdest thing about the game, though, is that for some reason, the character you start out with isn't is like at all a historical figure. They're just Claire. They're just Claire, who is someone, until you unlock someone else who is historical. Well, I don't know. It's just such a weird game. And number 4 is Terrifier, the ARTcade game. Weird enough, someone decided to make a tie-in game to the Terrifier movies as a beat-em-up, but it's truly shocking that this appears to be, and I'm gonna stop here and say this is alleged, but a pretty blatant ripoff of the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World game. The art style, immediately recognizable as being very similar to Scott Pilgrim. The similarities don't stop. The demo level, strikingly similar to the snowy level from Scott Pilgrim, and certain enemies look extremely similar as well. Now, to be fair, the game is not actually fully out yet, it's just a demo, but it's just kind of shocking that it hasn't been completely pulled from the service, given the allegations. On its own, it's just kind of a bad beat-em-up, but even turning Terrifier into a beat-em-up it's wild. And it's especially crazy they decided the game they should model their hardcore horror movie tie-in game as the Scott Pilgrim game. Like, I guess it was easier to copy than Streets of Rage 4? Allegedly? Whatever. And number 3 is Aviary Attorney, Ace Attorney, but you're a bird. I could stop there because that's really telling you everything you need to know, but the game deserves a little more attention. Far be it from being the Charlie Kelly tie-in game we all deserve. Aviary Attorney is set in 1840s France, using a distinctly period-accurate art style, and it wears its influences on its sleeve. It's undeniably just a take on Ace Attorney, but the strength and setting and story, honestly, make this one of the better clone games, you know? Keep in mind, this was made before Ace Attorney decided to dip its toe into historically inspired settings. It was also made before these games were available on PC, so gotta give it some credit, filling a gap that Capcom left open in the PC market. The game plays identically to the Ace Attorney games. You engage in dialogue, collect clues, and eventually present a case in court of law. It's melodramatic and mostly story-driven, just like the games that inspired it, but the setting and story do a lot to give the game a unique flavor that actually works. Not a whole lot of the actually working ones on this list, but they exist. And thankfully it's a bird-related one, so no egg in my face. Moving on to number 2, it's Neofeud. The 1997 Westwood-developed Blade Runner adventure game is a classic of the genre and a major inspiration for many a cyberpunk adventure game. Neofeud is probably one of those games, it's hard to say because of just how absolutely bonkers it is. It's like Blade Runner, but made by Neil Breen, with art by your least talented uncle hopped up on mushrooms. Neofeud is a mess, a glorious, absolutely insane mess that bombards you with gibberish dialogue along with eye-searing art from minute one. It's a sensory overload just trying to process what the hell you're seeing.
Singularity happens but once. The kingdom of heaven opened for an instant to the chosen.
Or perhaps we are Prometheus, moths to the flame.
It's all amateurish as hell, but also fairly ambitious. The game is someone's magnum opus if you squint hard enough, and you can see what they're trying to do here, but everything's kind of wrong. The writing's painful, the art's painful to look at, the puzzles are not good, nothing makes sense, the world building is bizarre. I could keep going, but you get it. Neofeud is a fascinating disaster of a game. It's like a car wreck where you have to look away because looking at it gives you eye strain. When people say that it's hard to get a so bad it's good game than like a so bad it's good movie, I agree. Playing a bad game, it's always going to be more painful than watching a bad movie, but this might be one of the rare few so bad it's good games out there if you're an advanced bad game enjoyer. It is deeply cringy and has some of the most aggressively unpleasant art I've ever seen, yet despite all reason I somehow want to see more.
Hey, sweetheart, you happen to see a shiny little card lying on the ground?
Maybe.
Spit it out, kid.
I already spit my gum out before I came in.
Oh, come on. I really need that card.
What's in it for me, huh?
Job's on a stick, girl. You're like a pint-sized hustler.
A good pony princess always uses leverage. That's how she gets to high places. Squid pro quo.
I think it's quid pro quo. Never mind.
And finally, at number 1, it's Super 3D Noah's Ark. You've heard of this one. Everyone's heard of it at this point, but I bet you didn't know that it's available for purchase on Steam. No, seriously, there's a store page and everything, and for just $10, Super 3D Noah's Ark can be yours. This unlicensed game for the Super Nintendo is famously insane. They took the Wolfenstein 3D engine and used it to make a game about biblical Noah shooting animals, which are mostly goats for whatever reason. He does it with a slingshot, though, and it's to put them to sleep. Don't know why you're doing it on the Ark. They're already there. They don't really need to be put to sleep, and a slingshot isn't the way to do it, but whatever. Obviously, none of this matters. The game makes no sense. It's just an unlicensed piece of shovelware made for a quick buck back in 1994. At least they actually got the license to use the Wolf 3D engine from ID Software now. The story of the making of 3D Noah's Ark is almost crazier than the game itself. Apparently, they were going to make a Hellraiser game for the NES using the Wolf 3D engine, but they eventually redesigned it into this when they realized the obvious thing, that the NES was not capable of running a 3D game. Also, that the Hellraiser license might clash a little with the studio's family-friendly image, I guess. I mean, they were putting out unlicensed games meant to be sold in Christian bookstores. Not sure how much of that audience wants a Hellraiser game. It's still kind of mind-boggling that this exists. Like, how much of it is just a direct reskin of Wolfenstein 3D? A lot. It's one of the craziest FPS games ever made, but the shocking thing is you can still buy the damn thing. that's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.